Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting Australian Indian Radio's Facebook daily live updates. And thank you so much for joining. It's wonderful to see you, and I hope your day has been going well. Well, this is one of the late editions. As we know that from time to time we have the late editions when we have some important community meetings, etc. in the morning when we are not available to broadcast live. But it was a good community meeting with the police department and some wonderful discussions that took place, which will bring to you all the details in the coming days. Well, right now, let's take a look at whatever's left of this day today, even though it looks just amazing and beautifully out there. So with that, I'd like to welcome Dilraj.
Good afternoon, everyone. Weather forecast for the rest of today is a maximum of 28 degrees. Brisbane area is mostly sunny. Westerly winds 25 to 35 km per hour, becoming light in the evening. There are 0% chances of rain. Fire danger is very high. Sun protection is recommended till 2:40 p.m. UV index predicted to reach a 7, that is high. Thank you very much.
And so there you are, up to date on Australian Indian Radio with the rest of the day on what it's going to be looking like. So as I mentioned before, that it is wonderful once again to have your company here. Well, right now, if you look at the coronavirus cases and where we are, let's get an update from our Premier, Anastasia Palaszczuk.
Everyone. Okay, so in good news for Queensland, we've only had one new case, but it's in hotel quarantine. So we have absolutely no concerns about that case. And we only now have 6 active cases in Queensland. So well done to Queensland, a great job, and keep up this wonderful effort. And in the last 24 hours, we've had close to 10,000 tests. So again, that is really, really good news. In relation to, we've actually expanded some of the postcodes around the Goondiwindi region. This has been a request that has come in from the local council, and I want to thank the Chief Health Officer and the Deputy Premier for acting very swiftly. These are very small numbers of people, and of course it's just to make that movement between those border communities a little bit easier. We are continuing to work with people when it comes to their health concerns, but also when it comes to the movement of agriculture. We've got very strong industry plans in place there, and of course these issues will be further discussed at National Cabinet on Friday. I'll hand over to the Deputy Premier and the Chief Health Officer, and then we're happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Premier. That one new case is a male aged 40 to 49 who returned from Papua New Guinea, is currently in quarantine. They tested positive on their 7th day of quarantine and are being managed by the Metro North Hospital and Health Service. As the Premier mentioned, we're making some small adjustments to the border zone around Goondiwindi as a result of feedback from Mayor Springborg, and I thank him for working with our Chief Health Officer. Also today, our world-leading researchers pass a new milestone in the search for a vaccine. The University of the Sunshine Coast is leading Queensland's part of the clinical trials for a vaccine developed by US vaccine manufacturer Novavax, and I congratulate them on their leadership there. Any Queenslander wanting to participate in those trials who is aged between 18 and 84 and is a non-smoker can visit the website usc.edu.au and register to participate in those trials and to help with the global race to find a vaccine for COVID-19.
Now, that is very good news about the vaccine, and of course we know that Queensland government provided the substantial amount to University of Queensland as well for the research and development of the vaccine. So the news that's coming on the vaccine is that it will be available soon because all the countries are, racing towards getting that vaccine out, but the testing on humans is beginning. And of course we know Russia had announced that they would have the vaccine free for everyone, but again there's lots of talks through United Nations and everyone about when it's fully available, how it will be distributed, and on what basis will it all be distributed to everyone. So that's good to see. But the good part about all of this is that we are getting closer to getting that vaccine, and the much needed vaccine. So the sooner that is out and about and available, the better it would be for everyone. Well, right now on the show today, let's welcome the Prime Minister with his message for the show today.
Well, it's strong prospects, and that's why they've advised that we proceed with this, and to come to the conclusion with AstraZeneca will give us the opportunity to be in the front of the pack and to be able to manufacture the vaccine here and make it available to all Australians. Timing of that, well, it's still a bit unsure at this point, but we would hope early next year. If it can be done sooner than that, then even better. This is the most promising, as we're advised. And in my discussions with other leaders around the world, particularly in Europe, they are forming a very similar view.
And of course, everyone will have similar views on that, because it is what everyone has been working towards, and everyone's trying, to get that vaccine out. So, Australia on the forefront and leading that would be wonderful. Well, of course, we know there's a lot of uproar in Belarus and other places of the world when people are not only fighting the pandemic, but also the leadership and the leadership challenge. So let's go and take a quick look at what's been happening in Mali as the coup took place there, and let's see what the reaction of the people has been there. So the military coup with the army has been called in there to, restore calmness, and let's see what happens out there. So we will keep you up to date. Right now, let's go to the news in brief. And the first news, as we all talked about coronavirus cases, and talking about those cases, Queensland 1,091 with a recovery of 1,079 and deaths at 6. And whole of Australia, 23,773 confirmed cases and recovery 14,924 and 438 deaths. Worldwide, 22 million. Yes, we have reached the 22 million mark. Recovery is at 13.9 million and 776,000 deaths. So, those are big numbers that are happening. But the promising news is that there is lots of talks now about the vaccine, so it might not be too far away. So let's go and talk to, World Health Organization's Director General, who outlines the possible COVID-19 vaccine distribution plan, the plan that I was talking about. So Tedros says a step needed to be taken to prevent vaccine nationalization, meaning it needs to be evenly distributed. So how is it going to look like? How will they do that distribution?
Once a successful vaccine has been identified, WHO's Strategic Advisory Group will provide recommendations for their appropriate and fair use. The allocation of vaccines is proposed to be rolled out in 2 phases. In phase 1, doses will be allocated proportionally to all participating countries simultaneously to reduce overall risk. In phase 2, consideration will be given to countries in relation to threat and vulnerability. Frontline workers in health and social care settings are prioritized as they are essential to treat and protect the population and come in close contact with high mortality risk groups. Initial data has shown that adults over 65 years old and those with certain comorbidities are at the highest risk of dying from COVID-19. For most countries, a phase 1 allocation that builds up to 20% of the population would cover most of the at-risk groups. If we don't protect these highest risk people from the virus everywhere, and at the same time, we can't stabilize health systems and rebuild the global economy.
And that's an update from World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Adhanom. And as he mentioned that, there would be a plan, and of course it will be done in an orderly fashion and a manner. And of course we can see that, once it's commercially available, made, and the distribution will be a bit of a challenge, because everyone would want a piece of action, and everyone would want their countries and everyone to come out for it. Well, right now, talking about the President Trump and the election that's happening here, he is going to pardon the 19th century women's suffrage icon. Susan B. Anthony was arrested in 1872 in US for violation of laws permitting male only to vote. So, America has, the world has come a long way since that date, but here is Trump.
Today I'm honored to sign a proclamation celebrating August 18th, 2020 as the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. In the summer of 1848, Elizabeth Cady Stanton stood before the first ever Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls, New York, and declared that women should enjoy this fundamental civil right. Later today, I will be signing a full and complete pardon for Susan B. Anthony. She was never pardoned. Did you know that? She was never pardoned. What took so long? And you know that she got a pardon for a lot of other women, and she didn't put her name on the list. So she was never pardoned.
So there you go, another historic fest. The president is going to pardon Susan B. Anthony, who was arrested in 1872. So once again, a good gesture there. Well, right now, something else which is of good news and not all bad news always. And there's a family which is going to plant 1 million trees over the next 10 years. A young family in regional Western Australia has an ambitious plan to plant 1 million trees during the next 10 years. The goal is to revive the land, to protect threatened species, as well as offset about 90,000 tons of carbon emission. Now, we were talking about many things that happen out there. Things like, when we mention the climate change. And of course, he is a perfect example of someone who's going in to actually do something about it, and not only just talk about it. Of course, we know that when we talk about climate change, when we talk about environment, and when we talk about nature, anytime anyone does something out of natural, meaning going against nature, there will be consequences. There will be side effects. So, if you take away trees, so there will be consequences. So you need to be very, very careful on what we do. Any form of energy that is generated, it is coming from somewhere. It's a transformation from one area to another area. As the old saying goes, that matter can neither be created nor destroyed. And that the universal law of equal and opposite reaction to every action. So, you have to be mindful. At the moment, everyone's going on the bandwagon about solar. And if you look at the sizes of the solar panels that have been going around, harnessing the power from the sun, be mindful that sooner or later someone will find out something that's not right with that as well. But right now, let's look at this story about this young family who's going to do the right thing by the environment.
My name is Tina Schroeder. I'm an ecologist and I live and work on Uradi Reserve, which is just 600 km north of Perth, bordering Kalgoorlie National Park. Uradi Reserve is situated at the northern tip of the Southwest Botanical Province, and it's an incredible, diverse and beautiful part of Australia. It's got about 700 different species of plants. The property has 33,000 hectares, and 10% of that was cleared for grazing and cropping in the last 100 years, and before that the land of bush heritage was of the Nanda people, the indigenous local group in the area.
My name's Ben Parkhurst and I work for Bush Heritage Australia as a reserve manager and ecologist. It's been a long-term goal to try and bring these areas back to a completely restored ecosystem.
We moved here when Ben was offered the job, and we've just totally fallen in love with the place and just really enjoy living here. It's just the most beautiful place to have your child grow up in the bush and in just really intact native bushland that you just can't find at many other places in Australia anymore. Over the next 10 years, we're hoping to restore those 2,000 hectares. That means planting the native species back that used to grow there. There's lots of land clearing happening across Australia, and often land is not productive anymore, and if it's not used for farming anymore, anything else, it can just degrade and it doesn't naturally just recover. We get lots of help though, from contractors, so it's not just Ben and I doing it. Hi Jeff, how are you going? The project is very ambitious. It's happening at a very large scale. Ben and I, we won't see those trees mature anymore because we won't live long enough for that to happen, because it'll take 50 to 100 years. But Liam might see that and his children might see that, so it feels fantastic to be able to do something for the next generation. We're hoping that Liam can look back at his childhood on Uradi and remember those trees when they were little, and that they've grown to full maturity. And
that's wonderful news that they can do that, as we know that there are many people who would like to do many things like that, but many times it comes down to affordability and being able to do that as well. Because raising families, making day-to-day ends meet as well is always challenging. But when people are in a position and financially okay to undertake projects like that, it is amazing that they do that, because there are many who have that ability and they won't do it. So, when someone does come out and take on a project like that, as I mentioned before, that you must be able to do that as well. Of course, people would enjoy, just going out planting trees and looking after the environment, but you also need to, survive in this environment and survive within the community and, earn money, raise a family and all those things as well. Right now, in one of the sessions, we had an interview on the Royal Commission for Disability. And there was, if you had seen that episode right from these studios, that there was some commentary about whether we had made any applications or submissions into that inquiry or not. Right now, the Dr. Dinesh Palipana, he discusses that Disability Royal Commission. And then it has found out that no COVID-19 plan existed for the disability sector until mid-April. 1 month after the World Health Organization declared a pandemic. The Commission restated this week after hearings were disrupted by the pandemic. So, of course, people didn't know. So there was no actual plan on that. So let's hear from Dr. Dinesh Palipana.
Dr. Palipana, thanks very much for being with us tonight. What are you going to tell the Royal Commission this week?
This week I'll be talking to the Royal Commission about a broad range of issues that affect people with disabilities. There were so many issues that people with disabilities faced in
Dr.
society.
Dinesh is from
pre-COVID.
Gold Coast.
But during COVID-19, a lot of these issues have been exacerbated. For example, I have a friend who has a very high-level spinal cord injury and is dependent on 24-hour care. And the pandemic has created some issues around carers because he's dependent on someone physically interacting with him 24 hours a day. So if one of these people or even he becomes affected by COVID-19 or needs to be isolated for any reason, how does he manage that?
What about the issue? We know in the broader community that people have been reluctant to go to the hospital or go to see doctors because they're scared of contracting coronavirus. Is that also affecting people with disabilities?
I've observed some really poor outcomes because people have delayed presenting to the hospitals for these reasons. And I know at least in some instances they've gone badly to the point where they've needed intensive care, which probably could have been avoided if they presented earlier. So I think this is definitely something that's affecting people with disabilities.
Could the issues that we've seen play out in aged care facilities also happen in disability residential facilities? And if so, is there sufficient planning underway to avoid that?
Absolutely. Disability care in residential settings is fairly similar to aged care settings, and it's risky because you're in an environment where you have multiple people, and this is a population that often has physiological vulnerabilities. So if they were to get COVID-19 or in fact any other infectious disease, their disease progression could put them at a significantly higher risk of complications or death.
Dr. Palpana, many thanks for your time this evening.
Thank you.
And that was Dr. Dinesh from Gold Coast, and of course the findings that have been mentioned there. Moving forward, a lot of need to be taken into account. Well, right now let's go to the next news, and we talked about and we displayed the events taking place in Beirut, that blast that everyone talked about. So Lebanese authorities are still trying to determine the circumstances that triggered that massive explosion in Beirut 2 weeks ago. There's widespread agreement that the corruption is to blame. It implicates everyone from the nation's outgoing prime minister to the country's head of customs who were arrested. So let's have a look at that blast, and the family is in mourning.
It was once called the Paris of the Middle East, but the scale of the devastation caused by the Beirut blast has shocked a nation that endured more than a decade of civil war.
This explosion has exposed the extent and the depth of the rot in the Lebanese system.
The explosion at a dockside warehouse has killed at least 180 people, injured thousands more, and left hundreds of thousands homeless. The Sisters of the Rosary Hospital is just blocks away from the port. Nurse Jacqueline Jabreen was standing at this window on the 7th floor when she was killed instantly by the explosion. Within hours, relatives around the world had been told the horrific news.
She told me, calm down. I told her, what's happening? Sorry. She told me the bad news about my sister. She passed away.
Her brother George Jabreen has lived in Sydney for more than 30 years, but stays in close touch with his family back in Lebanon.
I love my sister more than anyone else in the world, so she finished her shift. She prepared to go home. She was in the window looking outside, her and her colleague. Her colleague, she turned around to look after the patient. All her chest, this is bruised, but no scratches, no cuts, no nothing in her body. But my sister passed away straight away and the other nurse survived.
George's brother found their sister's body in the ruins.
He's the one put her in the emergency room.
Your brother pulled her out
Pulled her out, lift her and put her down.
and tried to get her help. For 6 years, almost 3,000 tonnes of highly explosive ammonium nitrate was stored in a government warehouse right in the heart of the city. Sparks from welders, reportedly attempting to fix holes in the walls, started a fire which ignited confiscated fireworks, also stored in the same facility.
I don't know much about chemicals or anything like that, but all I know is for a government to be at the highest level of corruption, to leave such a dangerous chemical around civilians, the government, this corrupt government, has no value for human beings. They just don't value people.
The Lebanese people had good cause to protest even before this latest crisis. Ballooning government debts put the nation's economy in freefall. Add to that the strain of more than 1 million refugees fleeing the civil war in neighbouring Syria.
A state that doesn't work properly because it's cronyistic and nepotistic, and that's causes a lot of frustration for some people.
The power-sharing structure created between Shias, Sunnis and Christians when the civil war ended in 1990 has long faced claims of entrenched corruption, confirmed by Lebanon's Prime Minister just hours before he resigned over the explosion.
There is no doubt that there is a lot of corruption over a period of 3 decades.
So there you go. That talks about corruption over the 3 decades. And, you know, as the lady said, why would anyone store such dangerous explosive chemicals in such a populated and central location? Well, right now, let's go to another news. Of course, we know that the epicenter of coronavirus here in Australia at the moment is Victoria. And Prince Charles, who had spent some time in his, while studying in Victoria, of course he's been there many other times, recalls that time as well, and he sends his best wishes to Victorians. The Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Charles, has sent a message of hope to Victorians, saying that his heart goes out to those who have been infected with COVID-19, as well as all those who have been affected by the pandemic.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've always felt a special fondness for Victoria, having spent 6 very happy months there at school 54 years ago, and having had a chance to explore various parts of the state. From being able to live among you and then to have had the good fortune to revisit your marvellous state on many occasions, I know that Victorians, like all Australians, are tenacious and resilient, or indeed, as you might say in Australia, made of tough stuff. My wife and I have endless admiration for your seemingly unceasing capacity for good humour in the face of great hardship. However, I realise that this capacity has been sorely tested this year, which has certainly been a tremendously difficult one for Australia, and especially, if I may say so, for Victoria. No sooner were the dreadful summer bushfires over than you found yourselves grappling with this pernicious and unpredictable virus. I can only imagine just how incredibly hard it must be for you all that, having had such early success in combating the virus, you now find yourselves in the midst of this second wave with all its heartbreaking consequences for so many people's lives, livelihoods and businesses. Having experienced this dreadful coronavirus myself, my heart goes out to all those currently battling the disease, those caring for them, either at home or in your first-class healthcare system, and those who have so tragically lost their loved ones. I do know how much of a toll this pandemic must have taken on so many of you, including all of you whose business enterprises and employment have been affected by the necessary social restrictions. I know too that a great number of essential workers, whether they work in care homes, hospitals, transportation or supermarkets, are doing a remarkable and utterly vital job in such very difficult and challenging circumstances. To all of you, I just wanted to say, on behalf of my wife and myself, that you are so much in our special thoughts that what I can well imagine is a tremendously testing and frustrating time, and that we care deeply for what you are having to go through. It is our heartfelt wish that, in the words of Victor Daly, the 19th century poet who found his voice in Victoria, and who was himself no stranger to hardship, you will soon see sorrow go down with the sun. So, all I can say, however inadequate this may seem under such unprecedented circumstances, is that these difficult, often soul-destroying days will surely pass, and we have no doubt that Victoria will emerge stronger than ever.
And as he mentioned, that Victoria will come out stronger than ever. Wonderful message there by Prince Charles. And on the show, we'd like to welcome Thuluk Bokhalal from Assam in India. Well, welcome to the show. I hope you're having a good time. And yes, God Almighty save us from this coronavirus. It's wonderful to see that people connecting in from all different parts of the world. Thank you so much for joining in. Well, right now, the next news is U.S. President Donald Trump. He refers to New Zealand as, okay, well, they were saying that there's no cases, but now they have a big surge of coronavirus. But of course, he says that in his own style. Have a listen.
When you look at the rest of the world, you know, they were trying to say, oh, we weren't doing. Now all of a sudden a lot of the places that they were using to hold up, they're having a big surge. They're having and I don't want that. I don't want that. But they were holding up names of countries, and now they're saying, whoops. In fact, even New Zealand, you see what's going on in New Zealand. They beat it. They beat it. It was like front page. They beat it because they wanted to show me something. The problem is big surge in New Zealand. So, you know, it's terrible. We don't want that.
So we don't want that, is what he's saying. Well, no one wants that. And it's just the manner in which he says that. And, well, right now, before we pen up for today, let's have a quick look at all the functions and events taking place around Brisbane. The Evening of Gratitude planned for 19th of September. And, of course, the BSK there. And ladies and gentlemen, if you have any function or event that you'd like to be included in this program, please do contact us and we will gladly do that for you. And of course, bookings are now being taken for the next edition. And thank you for everyone who went into our August edition, which is out and about now. If you have difficulties getting a hard copy, please do let us know, and we'll let you know where your nearest outlet might be, taking into account at this point in time, many shops and other outlets are closed, and hence, you might have difficulty in getting the hard copy, but we can guide you on to the right place to pick up your hard copy if you so wish. And of course, bookings for the next edition is already happening now, because we know that as soon as we put one out and you say, okay, yeah, this issue is out, and you are getting ready for the next one, because time just keeps on flying. There's so much information that's coming out there as well, and hence we are doing this new Facebook Live every day. And thank you very much for all your feedback, and that is always welcome, because with your feedback is how we can improve the show or make it into a manner as suitable or what you would like to see. And of course, don't forget to tune into the radio itself. That's now available in so many different platforms: Streamer, Zeno, TuneIn. If it does not work in some of the browsers at the moment, because there's some upgrade that is happening at the moment as well. So if you have a problem, go on to the next platform. There's a streamer, there's Radio IU, Radio Online, and so many different platforms. It's too many to list that you can listen to Australian Indian Radio on. On the phones, TuneIn will work directly, straight away, without any problems. On certain browsers, TuneIn might not work unless you have updated your browsers, and that has all come about because of the security settings. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, it's been wonderful having your company on the Australian Indian Radio's daily life update. And like I said, that today's one has been a late edition, and because we had the community meeting in the morning, and of course today we have that function in the afternoon for Trevor Evans, and then we have the White Ribbon teleconference meeting and few other engagements before the end of the day. So, always a busy time. Well, until tomorrow, it's goodbye from me. It's been wonderful having your company. And before I go, we have to thank our sponsors who make this segment possible. And with that, we'd like to go to a quick commercial break.
ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी 1989 से लेकर अब तक का विश्वसनीय और माननीय ब्रिस्बेन का रियल एस्टेट एजेंट है। उषा चंद्रा, जो कि ग्लोबनेट की डायरेक्टर है, अपने ग्राहकों को ईमानदार और एथिक सर्विसेज देती हैं। अगर आप ब्रिस्बेन की प्रॉपर्टी में पूंजी लगाना चाहते हैं और आप चाहते हैं कि आपकी प्रॉपर्टी को प्रोफेशनली मैनेज किया जाए, तो आप आज ही कांटेक्ट कीजिए उषा चंद्रा को। लैंडलाइन नंबर है 38654466 और मोबाइल नंबर है 0419775416। और आप प्रॉपर्टी की अधिक जानकारी और करंट अपडेट्स के लिए हमारी वेबसाइट पे लॉगिन कर सकते हैं। हमारी वेबसाइट है www.globnetreality.com.au। ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी आपका अपना लोकल रियल एस्टेट एजेंट है। हमारा पता है ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी, शॉप नंबर 5, 2281 Sandgate Road, Bundall, Queensland. Globenet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And real estate definitely is that well. And once again, I'd like to thank Devika. Devika, wonderful to have you on the show always, and for all the help and support that you give us by forwarding the message and sharing. And of course, when we talk about sharing, I'd like to also thank all the groups which allow us to share our Facebook Live on your shows. And talking about the 2.5 hour show that we did, well, we did two big ones. One was on the Bhumi Puja of Ram Mandir, and the other one was on India Day, 15 August or 15th August show for India Day fair virtually from this place, which has had over, very close to 45,000 views. So wonderful. It's great to see so many people logging in and connecting with the show. Well, with that, I need to say goodbye. It's been wonderful having your company. See you again tomorrow. But until that time, stay good, but best of all, stay safe.